I started law school expecting long nights, hard exams, even writing crazy rules. I didn't expect to be in menopause before I even graduated. But I guess this is just going to be a story time um, about how I found out I had endometriosis in the middle of law school and at the beginning of a pandemic. My name's Carlisa, and most people call me Carly. And today I just want to tell my story. Um, Eventually, I know that this video will land on the right people's timeline, and I'll be able to build my community with other like minded people. But I guess before I even get into that, if you're seeing this today, today's my 30th birthday. Cue the banners. Hey, happy birthday! Um, And what better time to talk about my story than on my 30th birthday as I'm entering into the next decade of my life. So I started law school in 2018 and I was very nervous, didn't know what to expect, but I was open and eager to accept all that law school had to offer me. Um I didn't know anybody going into law school. So I also was really hoping to build some community because I was the only one of like my friend group at the time who was taking that journey. And one thing my mentor said coming in the door was like, anything that you know, forget about it. And I did well in school. Like I got straight A's for the most part. It wasn't a thing of like I had to study much, but coming in and hearing that was like a culture shock. I think also my outlook on life at that time was very different. I would I didn't yes, clearly I know that I'm a black woman. I look in the mirror and I see that every day. But my experience being a black woman before law school was very different than once I started law school. Um So law school was very hard, but just even to like fast forward through that, it was my second L year. At this point, I've made it past that point where you can fail out and they put you out if your grades aren't good. Um, and I was in a swing of things, but my winter break of my first year of law school, I went on a trip and my menstrual started and it didn't stop. So for a year, I battled this uncontrollable, non-stop period that just would never come to an end. At this point, my doctor had put me on so many different medicines to try to get it to stop. I was going to my gynecologist once, sometimes twice a week. Didn't really know what was going on. Of course, because I was so young at the time, which I'm still young, but because I was so young, there's just certain tests that doctors generally don't do. Um, I, what I will say is I have an amazing doctor who was willing to climb up mountains and through valleys to figure out what was going on with me. So on the day before my appointment with my doctor, he sent me a message and said, I'm going to give you a prescription so that you can get your ultrasound done. But if anybody know how that works, typically you get one, you have to call the place and they want to schedule an appointment. But I didn't want to wait for the results because at this point I had already been waiting for months to figure out what's going on with me. So I went to the emergency room instead. Got to the emergency room, told them what was going on. They did the ultrasound. They took me back to a room, and the doctor came in and she's like, hi, um, I have a few questions for you. But her disposition alarmed me more than the words that came out of her mouth. So she goes on to say, um, do you want children? Have you ever thought about having children? And my heart dropped. And just a sidebar, I never wanted kids. I did not want them. I had been saying for a very long time, I don't want children. My parents knew, don't expect a grandchild from me because it was not happening. Uh, I was raised with a lot of siblings, so it just wasn't my thing. Well, at least so I thought. But when she said, do you want to have children? My heart dropped. And I'm looking at her like, well, why are you asking me that? And she said, well, we can't really see your ovaries. There's a mass blocking the left one. I can somewhat see the right one, but on the right side, there's so many cysts and fibroids that it's kind of blocking that one too. So it was a lot to digest. And I remember leaving the hospital, going home, and telling my parents. Well, for the first time in my life, I had this feeling of longing for something that I had said I didn't want. And like people always say, you tell God your story, he's going to laugh at you. And clearly, I had a plan for my life. I just knew how it was going to work. I was going to undergrad, I was going to law school, I was going to become this big attorney, I was going to change the world and make a whole bunch of money in the process. That's not what happened. So I told my parents, and I really was upset. And I think my reaction shocked myself because I was like, what in the world is happening here? And why do I even feel like this? I went to my doctor's the next day, and my doctor said, I know the type of person you are. And I already knew because he had seen the results from the hospital before I came in to see him. So he said, I already know the type of person you are. And he handed me a packet to a fertility doctor. And I was looking at him and I was like, I just don't like my choices to be taken away from me. And I realized that, of course, going to therapy and you learning yourself, that's a little bit of childhood trauma when you feel like you've gone through your life and never had a choice to, or never had an option or a say so in things that happen to you. Typically, when you matriculate or you become an adult, now you're at a point where it's like, no, I want all of my decisions to be my own. So I took that journey to go to a fertility doctor to figure out what was going on. Fast forward, we find out that I have endometriosis, and I was told that I could not conceive at all. Now, at this point, we've had several conversations. I've had family members who offered to like carry for me, to do all of these things because my doctor gave me a year. If you want to have a child, you have a year to get this done. If you don't get it done within this year, then it's not going to happen. You have to have the hysterectomy because my reproductive system just was not cooperating the way that it should, especially at my age. So I go through the process, and it was a very lonely journey in itself because you go to this doctor's office and you see couples. Everyone there is coupled. Um, and of course, I had family and friends who offered to go, but you have to go there so much. I was there like 3 times a week seeing the doctor. And it's lonely because everybody else has that person that's like in that ring with them, fighting that fight with them. And it felt like yet again, here's another fight in my life where I had to fight it alone. Where nobody else really understands the pain or the heartache or even the loneliness that I'm feeling. And of course, I've been raised in church my whole life. My grandfather's a bishop. I understand that God understood how I felt, but there was no physical person in that moment that understood how I felt. Fast forward, the doctor told me that I couldn't conceive, and because she believed it so much, that she would basically do the procedure for free. And now at 30, I understand that every time somebody bets against the faith that I have, it's like betting against God. And nobody ever beats him. So she did the procedure. Now I will say she probably thought that she was right because the procedure happened top of the year. It took 6 weeks, 6.5 weeks for me to get a positive test result, positive like pregnancy test result. And of course, medically, that just doesn't make sense to them. They're like, how? It's not possible. But God works miracles. And I know now that it was meant for me to mother. Um, so I found out that I was pregnant. And I found out that I was pregnant February 2020. Maybe like the third week of February 2020. The world shut down March 1st, 2020. So now, not only has I had to finish my spring semester of my second year of law school virtually, but I'm also pregnant, and now everybody's locked down and in the house. So the week that I found out that I was pregnant, maybe exactly 7 days later, I started getting sick. Now, of course, everybody's like, oh, it's just the first trimester. Your nauseous only for the first trimester. And I'm like, okay. But at this point, when I tell you I didn't want to smell anything. I couldn't drink anything. I couldn't even drink water without throwing up. So, of course, the doctors give you all of the different nausea medicine. Let's take this, let's take that. Something will work, right? No, nothing worked. I had lost like 30 pounds, maybe even closer to 40 pounds. I was so frail. Um, and now I can laugh at it, but I always say I looked like, if anybody has ever watched Twilight when Bella is pregnant, she like lose so much weight, she's so frail, her bones is like snapping all over the place. That's how I felt, and I'm sure that's how I looked. At that point, I was wearing an extra small. Um, and it really was the worst experience of my life. As I'm talking about this, it really was. So get through the first trimester. Now, at this point, it has gotten so bad that they gave me an IV, and a nurse was coming to my house because, of course, nobody could go anywhere. A nurse was coming to my house every day to give me a saline drip because I was dehydrated because I couldn't keep anything down. That didn't last long because technically IVs aren't supposed to, they're supposed to be for a short amount of time. You're not supposed to have like a standard IV in you for a long period of time. So they ended up, which is also crazy. A doctor will not diagnose you with hyperemesis until your second trimester. Why? I don't know, especially when all the signs are there. Uh, I was counting down to the first day of the second trimester because at this point I'm like, great, we're going to get through this. I won't be sick anymore. I'll be able to like start to feel like myself again. No, that didn't happen. Right before my second trimester started, I started to get these really bad pains in my stomach, and I started passing out. But I would pass out and not know that I passed out. So one day I go to the bathroom, the pain hits me, I drop to the floor, I pass out on the floor. I wake up, I'm on the floor. I get back to my room and I'm like, if I just get to my bed, I'll be fine. I lay down, I don't say anything to anybody. It happens, I have to use the bathroom again and the pain hits again. But this time I fall in my bedroom on the floor and I'm in so much pain that now my body is throwing up because I guess it was my body's way of responding to the pain. I had a movie playing in my room and my phone was on my bed. I literally had to lay on the floor in pain until the movie stopped so that I could tell Siri to call my family so that somebody could come and get me. So the ambulance came and got me, and I think I stayed in the hospital that time for 3 weeks. At this point of quarantine and the shutdown, when you go into the hospital, nobody can come with you. You can't even have a support person. So your family is getting updates over the phone. I remember calling my doctor because they wouldn't check me because they said at that point the as the doctor said, your child isn't viable. So that's not a concern of ours. We need to figure out what's wrong with you because ultimately, if worse comes to worse, we're saving you and not your child. And of course, these emergency room doctors, the hospital doctors don't know what I'm going through, what I had to go through to get to this point. So there's no bedside manner or care concern for this child, my child at that. So I call my doctor. My doctor calls up there, like, we're going to get her transferred, you know, check the baby, check the heart rate. So they were checking me. But at this point, I could only lay on my left side because of issues I then started having with my heart. So I was only laying on my left side and I could not stand up straight because they said your baby is growing straight across your pelvis. So ultimately I got a pelvic slip, so I couldn't stand up straight. So not only am I 24, pregnant, on lockdown because it's a pandemic, but now I can't even stand up straight and I'm using a walker. You've got to be kidding me. Like it's no way. The jokes was writing themselves. So eventually get out the hospital. I had the PIC line in my arm. And I think I'm home. At this point, the doctor that I had, which said he specialized in high risk patients, he told me I was too high risk and said I could no longer come to him. So he sent me somewhere else. I get a new doctor. The first time I see this doctor, he's like, "You're all out of breath. Like your asthma, you got to go to the hospital." I'm back in the hospital for probably another 2 weeks, 3 weeks. At this point, I'm like, this can't be life because I keep doing these hospital stints. I'm in the hospital for 3 weeks. I come back home a week and a half. I'm back in the hospital again. Come back home, and this time my doctor's like, you know, this isn't going to work. You're having too many issues because the way they categorize it is if you have asthma, there's 3 categories that you fall in when you get pregnant. Either your asthma gets worse, your asthma stays the same, or your asthma gets better. Of course, my asthma gets worse. So now that means I can't breathe, I can't walk, I can't eat, I can't drink. You can't do nothing. Um so my doctor's like, you know what? I'm going to have to admit you, and you're going to have to just stay in the hospital until you have the baby, or at least until the baby is viable enough for you to deliver and it not be a problem. So I'm like, okay, I guess that's what we have to do. Now they did put me, the hospital room that they admitted me in was right on the back of the building so that my family members could come to the back window. And essentially it was like jail. They could call me and we were talking to each other through the glass while I'm laid up in the hospital bed. Um so the first 30 days I was fine. They Day 31 was when it really got bad. And I started to feel like I was going to go insane because I was tired of sitting in the hospital. I hadn't been outside because I couldn't walk, so they couldn't take me outside. Um, I was on bed rest, and so much so that they halted physical therapy because as soon as I started walking, my oxygen would drop. Um, so it definitely felt like I was all alone. And life was going on, but in a weird way because everybody ultimately really couldn't do anything either on the outside. But at least they could breathe fresh air. I guess one day I'll get into my experience being admitted into the hospital. Um, just know it was not what I anticipated. The treatment wasn't what I anticipated to receive during that time. While I am cognizant of the fact that people were dying um, from COVID and we had a mass pandemic going on, and even those respiratory therapists that were assigned to me were also the respiratory therapists for a lot of COVID patients. The care that I received still was not the best, considering how touch and go my particular situation is. Um, I remember one of my friends asking, like, you didn't tell anybody that you were pregnant. And I had to explain it would have been a lot easier for me to navigate grief um, if my child didn't make it, doing it with just those close people in my circle who were aware that I was pregnant. Whereas, had everybody known, then everybody would have been asking that question of, like, oh, well, what happened? Where's the baby? And then it just makes grieving 10 times worse. Um, so I did 60 days, a little over 60 days in the hospital. And then I had my son. They induced me. He was a preemie. He was born 4 pounds, 13 ounces. Prior to him being born, they had put me on, I was on 160 milligrams of prednisone, which is a steroid, every day for, I think, maybe 5 weeks. They had started like 5 weeks before I had him. And then they gave me the extra steroid shot that they give you if you're going to have a baby early. So I had him, and actually I had a failed induction. So they induced me, and they gave me the Foley bulb twice. And anybody who knows what the Foley bulb is literally this balloon that they insert into your cervix. It's attached to this weighted water balloon. And as the weight expands and more water fills into the balloon, it expands the balloon that's in your cervix to dilate you and open you up, so ultimately you can get to 10 centimeters so you can have your child. Now, the original plan was, because my body had already sustained so much trauma, let's just induce you, let the baby work his way out. No. And now, if you know my son now, you know that he just was not going out without a fight. It just wasn't even happening. So they did the Foley bulb. And when I tell you it was the worst pain I had ever felt in my life, the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. And to make matters worse, I asked them, like, well, what's the course of action for pain management with this? And their response was, oh, well, we can give you like a Percocet type of drug. And I'm like, well, isn't it dangerous for a baby? Yeah, it is, but like it'll help with your pain. Well, no, I don't want it. And the lady would tell me, like, when you feel the pain, just know, like, just say 5 more minutes. Within 5 minutes, it is going to drop. No, I think I sat there for an hour of this balloon keep blowing up, trying to stretch me open, and for it to not work. So they did it the first time, and then they're like, we're going to do it again because you only dilated a half a centimeter. They put me through that pain one more time, and at this point, they had me on the highest dose of pitocin. Nothing's happening. I'm laying there doing crossword puzzles. So they try again. They come back in. They check me again, and was like, "Yeah, so you only dilated a centimeter at this point. So let's just wait. We're going to try to increase the pitocin one more time." So now I'm at the max, and I'm just sitting there. Not a contraction, not a nothing. 36 hours pass. And they come in and it's like, hey, we're going to have to call it. You've had a failed induction. We're going to have to do a C-section. They prepped me, we'll be in. Within 10 minutes, this is over. I said, I waited 36 hours for something that y'all could have got done in 10 minutes. Are you serious? This got to be a joke. But no, it was real life. 10 minutes. They cut me open, which that is a very traumatic experience in itself. Because C-sections, if you've had a C-section, I salute you because that is a major surgery and they have an expectation that right after that's done, they want you to get up, walk around, nurse your baby, feed your baby, change your baby, and do everything. And that right there is why I always say women are strong. So, have my C-section, have him, and they're like, well, we can keep you extra. No, man, you cannot keep me no longer. I've been here over 60 days. I'm ready to go home. I leave, I get discharged, and I go home. Now, just to put a pin in it, at this point, I was trying to re register for my classes at school. My advisor ended up calling me, seeing that I was in a hospital, and was like, absolutely not. You're going to take the semester off. And it broke my heart because if you know me, you understand that I'm big on like timelines and just wanting to finish things and not let things get in my way. But I had to take that semester off. As soon as I had him, I was back on the phone with my advisor, like, hey, can we start getting a schedule? And she's like, you have time. Like, you have to let the semester go by, and then I'll call you back in like 2.5 months. So I had to wait, twiddling my thumbs, and immediately I knew I was like, dang, I'm not gonna graduate with my friends. Because we did this together. Like we got through this together. So I had him. I decided that I was going to take summer classes because I had him in September. They made me take the semester off, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take summer classes, spring classes, summer classes, and hopefully be done because I'm still trying to walk with my friends. But that didn't happen. So essentially their last semester I came back and I literally had to get approval from the dean to take the credits because I had taken the maximum amount of credits that a law student could they basically would legally let you take in a semester because I was trying to hurry up and finish. And good thing I was able to do it online. But it still was a lot. I had a lot of classes and a newborn baby. Um, a newborn preemie at that. So I'm nursing and doing school. Not to mention at 3 months he gets COVID. He gets COVID, my whole household gets COVID, I get COVID. So I'm like, this just can't be life. Every time it seems like I'm starting to get a swing into things, something was happening. And I finished that semester of school. Over the summer. I take more classes during the summer. And then that way it was just, I had 2 classes to take my last semester. So I technically graduated fall of 2021. Um, Even though I didn't walk until May of 22 because law school only have one graduation. I completed that fall. I did the I did clinic because I love family law. That's my niche, that's my area. And I was really excited because at this point I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. And my baby will be able to be at graduation. Like I was looking forward to graduation. So my plan was take the finish school in December, take the February bar exam, and then um figure out what I was going to do. I really didn't want to clerk, but I ended up clerking. So I ended up going to work for a judge, and I think that was the best experience I ever had in my life. He let me work from home. I technically worked in Delaware. I went up I think once a week. But he let me work from home, and he, when I say taught me a lot, and not only just helping me navigate my work home life balance, but becoming the a strong lawyer and teaching me those skills, I definitely learned a lot in that process. I think, of course, I wouldn't change anything. If I look back now, I would never change anything that I experienced during that time, but it definitely made me stronger. It made me realize that I had grit and determination that I don't think that I had. Becoming a mother taught me strength and endurance. And because I knew that there were skills that I wanted my child to embody, it was important and imperative that I be the example. So if I didn't want people to walk all over him, then I had to learn how to properly set boundaries and stand firm on those boundaries. If I didn't want him to give up, then ultimately I needed to learn how to push through things and not want to wallow or even not stay in that sad space for too long. Um, I think while I understand that like nowadays it's a big thing of like, don't want to have children, not having children. While ultimately that was my goal, I just wanted to be a rich auntie, a rich fly auntie. But that wasn't God's plan for me. And I'm grateful for the path that He has put me on. I'm grateful for um the journey and the road that I had to take to get here. I definitely would not be who I am if it wasn't for him. Not only writing this path and writing my story the way that he did, but walking with me throughout the process. I definitely would not be who you see today. I wouldn't be as confident as I am today. I wouldn't be bold and courageous. I'll say this, and I guess we're gonna end here with that. Um, dang, I lost my train of thought. Shit. With it, I'll say this, and I guess we can end here. Um, if you don't want people to put you in a box, you can only be willing to show them certain parts of you. So as I walk through this journey of trying to create content, or not so much trying to, because I'm doing it, creating content and opening up myself, I'm allowing those close to me and those who don't know me and who are the community that I am trying to build to see all of the multifaceted parts of me and see that I am more than just a church girl. I'm more than just a lawyer. I'm more than just a mother. But I am fearless. I am bold. I am a jack of all trades. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If this resonates with you, leave a comment down below. Like, comment, and subscribe.